Hi, good evening. Austin Mayor Steve Adler. You got a minute? We're going to hit some virus numbers here tonight, COVID numbers, so that you know where we are. And it kind of gets lost in all of the snow and power outages, but it's good to touch base on them. We don't have current information because obviously folks that do this kind of work had trouble getting into town and moving around just like everybody else. And a lot of the folks involved in that don't have power. So don't have access to be able to communicate. But we do have some numbers we want to share. I want to talk a little bit about the power utility situation that we're in. I want to touch base with respect to the vaccines and where we are on that. But we're going to begin with the numbers as we do other days, but then we're going to get to the power and weather situation. So let's begin by taking a look at the dashboard. The dashboard right now is the dashboard really from last night. Not able to update it for tonight, but we didn't have got a minute last night, so it's going to be new information, at least to us here. So these are the key indicators. Again, this information is not going to be updated until Thursday, the 18th. But what the information we have now, this is actually the information from the 15th, which was yesterday. You can see that the number of new admissions went down to 16. The 7-day moving average, 41. At 30, we move into the yellow area. Now, it could be that this number is artificially low because people are having trouble moving around in the city, which we know to be true. We still have some folks that are finding the hospital. If you're not feeling well, you need to get to the hospital. That's worthy of a 911 call. Absent that kind of emergency, we'll talk in a second about other ways to get transportation in this weather if you're trying to get to a shelter and the like. But if you have COVID and having trouble breathing, you need to get to the hospital, that's a 911 call. Please make sure that you go. But you can see the number has gone down. Number of new cases based on testing as of 2 days ago, 279. That was bringing down the 7-day move average there to about 302. Remember last week, the infectivity rate was 9.4. The positivity rate was 9.4. Later in the week, we found out that number was actually closer to 10. Dr. Escott texted me not too long ago. It's Tuesday, right? We should have all Dr. Escott's numbers today in a big data dump, but we don't have that right now. But what he did text me that the positivity rate this week was looking to be 8.4%. That's a good sign. That number continues to drop. We need to get the viruses down. You know, I'm not sure what's going to be happening with respect to viruses given what's happening with the weather. Are more people isolating by themselves because they can't travel, or are we forcing more people into congregate situations where they're closer to other people? I don't know the answer to that question. The 17-day moving average for folks in ICUs is 117. The number in our ICUs on the yesterday, on the 15th, was 109. The 7-day moving average on ventilators was 76. We had 70 in there. That was again yesterday's numbers. Number of people hospitalized, 383. 7-day moving average yesterday. The number in the hospital was 364. So those numbers seem to continue to go down, and we need them to. And I'm hoping that we continue that way through this weather and power situation, and we'll hope that we see that. Let's talk for a little bit about the situation that we're in right now with respect to the weather and the power. I know that there are lots of people in this community that are without power, have been without power for a really long period of time. Some of us have power, and now we have a house full of refugees from the community that have left homes that don't have power. And I think that's happening in a lot of places over the city. People that don't have power where they can are finding the opportunity to be with friends and family, with people that do. It's a scary time, an incredibly frustrating time. And I'll talk about the concept of rolling outages here in just a second, because we're obviously not able to deliver those. And I want to explain why Austin Energy is not making that happen. But I do want to start off just right off the bat by saying I share the frustration, and we're all upset. The Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or ERCOT, has to start explaining how it is that millions of Texans are without power. At one point, I understand there were 5 million Texans without power. Last report I saw had that number down to about 4 million Texans without power. Obviously, rolling outages are not that here in Austin Energy. This weather pattern is something that happens every 10 years, so it seems, and there has got to be a better plan. There's a lot of work to do when this is done to figure out what it is that went wrong and why we ended up where we did and how to make it so that it doesn't happen again. And I am sorry that so many people right now are suffering so much with such great uncertainty. But let's focus right now on the situation that we are in. Let me first talk about rolling outages. ERCOT apparently identified all of the power companies that it was going to have to be cutting back the amount of power that it could send to different jurisdictions. The way that it decided how much it would send to each place was to decide what was the total amount of power it could send, and then sending to each place or each company the percentage of power that they use. Austin Energy uses, I think, between 3.6 and 3.7% of the total power generated in the state, and that's what ERCOT said they would deliver, but of a lower amount. Austin Energy, knowing that was going to be a lower amount, set up their standard plan, which was to then cut power in certain parts of the city, certain circuits that have businesses or homes on that circuit, and then to take a circuit off, and then put that circuit back on and take a different circuit off. And then take that circuit back on and put a different circuit on. And that's what they were talking about, and the plans for Austin Energy have that being able to rotate through every 40 minutes to an hour. That's what they were anticipating. As it turns out, the temperatures not only went low, but the temperature getting down to 18 degrees below zero with the wind chill factor actually started dumping distribution. And it is all different kinds of distribution. We had disruption for the power coming from the nuclear reactor, but also from gas-fired plants. As it started getting colder, and more people started using gas to heat all around the state. And that put a real run on natural gas. So natural gas plants around the state were having trouble getting natural gas and couldn't produce power. Coal had similar kinds of issues. And then some of the renewables as well, with turbines that were freezing. Most of the power generation disruption was in the fossil fuel class, but it was all different classes of power. Austin ERCOT then saw the demand rising to levels that it had never seen before because the temperatures were dropping so low. It was watching distribution start to really fall off the system. And it became apparent that even with the reductions that ERCOT was intending, it was going to have a greater demand for the available generation. So they went back to the different providers in the different cities and said you have to dump even more of the load. We can't supply even the energy we said we were going to supply. at which point Austin Energy then started taking more circuits off of our available power. And Austin Energy got to the place where they cut every circuit in this city that didn't have a piece of critical infrastructure on it. So every circuit that is on right now is a circuit that also ties into a hospital or a police station or a fire station or something like that. The circuits that are off are the circuits that don't have critical infrastructure associated with them. But because Austin Energy needed to do that to such a degree, Austin Energy now cannot turn back on circuits that were turned off, because that would require them to turn off a circuit that is currently on. And they can't turn off the circuits that are on because they're tied to critical infrastructure, which means that the people that went out of power 2 o'clock in the morning a couple of days ago are still without power today. Tonight, it looks like the inclement weather, the freezing weather, is going to continue. Temperatures down real low. We're anticipating a 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of precipitation tonight. Should immediately turn into ice. So this is a situation that they're not predicting is going to get better tonight. Even with temperatures rising on Thursday, I'm told that it's entirely possible that the snow is not going to melt until Friday, maybe even until we get into Saturday. The ability to be able to start turning on circuits back in our city is at this point dependent on the ability for the state system to be able to turn back on some of the generation that has gone off. And that's the work that's being done right now. And we don't know how long it's going to take for that to happen. We don't have visibility where we sit to know when the different power generation units that are offline are going to be able to go back online. There's a graph, a chart that I want to show you here. This is from the ERCOT website. Let me see if I can find it here. And you can get this by going to ERCOT.com. This is the website, ERCOT's website. If you go down here, you can look at today's outlook, which is in this left-hand corner. We can blow that up and take a look at it. And this is the chart that shows the relationship between the amount of energy that's being produced, which is this orange line, and the green line, which is the demand. The only reason that demand is as low as it is because ERCOT's making power companies like Austin Energy turn off circuits in the city. Understand, when you turn off a circuit, you have to turn off the whole circuit. Austin Energy says it does not have the capacity to turn on or off any particular place. Either the circuit is on or the circuit is off. But anyhow, across the state, they're turning off the circuits, the green line. It's the relationship between the green line and the orange line that we have to maintain. If for whatever reason the demand is ever allowed to go up to be greater than the actual supply, then the entire ERCOT grid will fail. If the entire ERCOT grid fails, we don't have power, you have a blackout, and it could take several weeks to fire it back up. So this process we're in right now is ERCOT making sure that at no point does the generation that it's able to put online, does demand ever allowed to get higher than the generation that it can put online. And that spread between those two things is the operating reserve, which in this case is 2,381 megawatts. But if you want to watch and see how we're doing over time, if we're recovering the energy and the generation, this is the site to go to, ERCOT.com, and you can take a look at those charts to be able to see. But that's what we're dealing with power generation right now. We don't know when the power is going to get, the generation will come back in, as they said. We're told that everybody hopes it'll be tomorrow, but it could be Thursday, it could be Friday, it could be into Saturday. So we need people to be able to plan accordingly. As Austin Energy gets more information, they're going to share the information as they get it. But right now, we're keeping on the circuits so that we make sure that we power our hospitals and control centers, the airport, the water, wastewater plants we have in our city. While we're talking about water, let me mention, I see a lot of rumors today about risk that we might be having to turn off our water treatment plant. We might have to go back to a water boil situation. And at this point, Austin Energy is saying that that there is not a danger of us losing water at this point, that the power is sufficient to continue operating those stations. I know that there were some water boil notices in the Barton Creek area, but that was not Austin water. That was, I think, MUDs 3 through 9. We're having some issues. But at this point, I've heard no indication of Austin water being in any kind of jeopardy. Although I see the same kind of social media rumors that you have, but the city manager and Austin Energy specifically said that I should make that kind of update to everybody in the community. But we need to start thinking about and preparing for the possibility that those without power might not get power back here for an extended period of time, a day, 2, maybe 3 days. What that also means is that if you have power, by and large, you're probably going to be able to keep that power coming because you're on a circuit that has critical infrastructure associated with it. Now, none of these general rules are true for everybody. We have some people who are going on and off power, but those are the general rules. If you have power and you have family or friends that don't, you might want to consider inviting them to be with you, as we have done here in our home. If you are lucky enough to have power, please drop your thermostat to 68 degrees or even lower. Unplug all non-essential appliances. Turn off non-essential electronics. Close your shades and your blinds to keep heat loss from escaping out your windows. Avoid using large appliances, ovens, washing machines, etc. Bottom line, if you have power, conserve and try to live as if you don't. Try to make sacrifices for the greater good. The people who have power need to conserve in massive amounts, if possible. There are 2 different ways Austin Energy can drop its load, its demand at the instruction of ERCOT. One is to close down circuits, and the other one is to have a lot of conservation. So that's what we all need to be working on right now. Especially, I urge businesses to take a look at this. We have a lot of buildings downtown that have lights on. We've been reaching out to the Downtown Austin Alliance, DAA, the Chamber, commercial management companies. And I know they have been really aggressively reaching out to their folks tonight to make sure that we're turning things off when we can turn them off, so that everybody is part of the conservation effort in the city. If you can shelter at home, that is the safest place for people to be. But we do have some limited spaces for people who are vulnerable and have medical equipment that requires power to operate. Some of these shelters are open 24/7. Some of them are open in the daytime as warming stations. If you're going to a warming facility, please be prepared to arrive safely, dress in layers for warmth. Bring extra blankets with you if you have them. Bring phone chargers and water and snacks. There is some there, but to the degree that people can bring them, that would be great. The warming facilities that we have right now that are open, Palmer Event Center, which is downtown here, 900 Barton Springs Road. Also, Mendez Middle School is open, 5106 Village Square Drive. The Northeast Early College High School used to be Reagan, called Reagan, up at 7104 Berkman. Also open through all of these through the night. Del Valley High School, 5201 Ross Road. I want you to note this hotline, 512-305-ICE, that's ICEE, 512-305-ICEE, which is 4233, 505-4233. You can go there to get the most up-to-date information about warming and cold weather shelters. If you need transportation and don't readily have it, and again, best to drive during the daytime, harder to drive at night. If you are driving, drive slowly, drive really slowly. I was out last night going to some of the shelters and to the Emergency Operation Command. The cars that were out seemed to be doing a decent job, and that's because everybody was just going really, really slowly. But if you need transportation, call 311. APD is providing transportation for folks that are most at risk and need to get from perhaps a home that doesn't have power, where the conditions are unsafe, to get people to shelters. Also, you can call the Austin Disaster Recovery Network at 512-808-0800. That's 512-808-0800. They have volunteers that are driving four-wheel drive cars and offering to help get people that need it from one place to another. I will also tell you that the Austin Disaster Relief Network is looking for additional volunteers to be able to do that. So call if you're willing to volunteer or if you need assistance, that 512-808-0800 number. This is the most difficult time we have ever had, and this is critical. And I recognize that this is dangerous and scary for a lot of people. We just need to pull together and help one another. I know that the city is working with AISD to open up even more warming stations, more shelters for people to be able to access. We know that open during the day until 9 p.m., Lee Elementary School and Murchison Middle School. Tomorrow open from 9 to 9 again, but they're open for another hour and a half. Lee Middle School and Murchison Middle School. And again, there's a volunteer form. If you can volunteer to even help man some of the shelters, that would be really helpful. If you go to 512-808-0800, then you can volunteer to be a shelter. They also have a volunteer form that you can fill out to be a volunteer. And I urge people to take a look and see if that's something that they can do. I want to talk about vaccines for just a little bit. Remember, we got 12,000 vaccines last week to be able to give out. We're supposed to be giving those out this week. Currently, Austin Public Health only has the vaccine doses that were delivered last week. Vaccine doses expected to be delivered this week are delayed and are being held. We're not giving out any vaccines right now because it's really difficult to travel, and it's difficult for staff and for the volunteers to be able to get in to run the operation. So it's anticipated that we'll be standing up sites for vaccinations, hopefully by Friday, certainly by Saturday. APH, Austin Public Health, will email, text, or call people to help them get new appointments as the weather conditions allow. Know that if you've already gotten your first vaccine, if you're waiting for your second dose, that no one is going to get your second dose. You're the one that's going to be able to get that. Everybody who got a first dose through Austin Public Health will get their second dose through Austin Public Health. Remember that CDC has released guidance that says that the second dose can be delivered up to 6 weeks, 42 days after the first dose. And we'll get that second dose to everybody who had a first dose within that time frame, and make sure that happens. Again, I would urge you that if you can volunteer, reach out to the Austin Disaster Relief Network. Call that 512-808-0800 number. Another really helpful thing to do would be to go to the Austin Area Urban League website. That's AAUL.org. AAUL.org. That stands for Austin Area Urban League. They have an emergency donation drive that's called Love Thy Neighbor. It's accepting monetary donations. The city is working with them in their efforts. Again, this is the toughest time we've ever faced. It's not going to end quickly. There are so many hurting and scared and danger, so many frustrated, myself included. Let's do all we can right now to help others. You all be safe. Have a good night.